Welcome back to the deep dive. I have to be honest with you. When I first saw the source material for today, I almost put it in the maybe later pile.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we're looking at a transcript called Unlock the Mystical Secrets of Guru Puja. And, when I see words like puja or mystical secrets, my brain it goes to a very specific place.
I know what you mean. Incense, chanting.
Heavy incense, right. People throwing flowers around in a cloud of smoke. It feels very distinct, like a religious ritual you either buy into or you don't.
It definitely evokes a specific image, and it feels distant. Like that happens in a temple somewhere, not something you apply to your Tuesday morning.
Exactly. But, and this is the hook, this is why we're talking about it,
Yeah.
I started reading, and I realized my assumption was completely wrong. Or at least it was incomplete. What if that ritual... What if it wasn't actually about the flowers? What if the flowers, the chanting, the whole setup was a coded manual?
A manual for what?
For a complete psychological overhaul. The speaker in this text argues that this entire process is actually a guide for a complete cognitive shift.
Now, that is a fascinating reframe. And, before we get into the heavy concepts, we should probably set the stage.
Good idea.
The source describes the location of this talk, and it's kind of a perfect metaphor for the whole thing. He says it has the ambiance of the Himalayas, but the comfort of a city.
That sounds like my kind of camping.
Right? There's internet, AC, all the modern facilities. But the vibe is ancient. And that duality runs through the whole text. It's taking these really old esoteric concepts and trying to plug them into a modern, Wi-Fi connected mind.
And just to be totally clear up front, our mission today is not to convert anyone. We are not starting a deep dive sect.
Right.
We are purely unpacking this text as a piece of, philosophy and psychology. We want to understand how this source defines a set of 10 flowers and then 5 more. Not as physical things, but as psychological states you have to cultivate.
States you need to clean the 7 chakras.
Right, and I can almost hear some listeners rolling their eyes at that. Cleaning chakras. It sounds like the ultimate woo-woo buzzword.
It does. It usually implies some kind of magic. You wave a crystal, play a singing bowl, and poof, you're fixed.
Yeah. But this source is very specific and actually quite grounded. He argues that cleaning the chakras isn't magic at all. It's a simple cognitive shift.
A simple cognitive shift.
Okay, hold on. I want to push back a little on the simple part. Because transforming, deep-seated emotional issues with a cognitive shift sounds great on a podcast, but in practice...
It's incredibly hard.
Right. Is the source just saying we decide to change?
That's a fair point. And no, it's not about snapping your fingers. It's about recognizing the energy. The text gives some examples, like shifting from fantasy to visualization.
Okay.
Or the big one, shifting from fear to clear planning.
Fear to planning.
Yes. The source says fear is just energy, raw fuel. If you just sit in it, it clogs the system. That's the dirty chakra. But if you transform that same energy...
It becomes planning. Action.
Exactly. You shift the cognition, and the chakra is cleaned.
I like that. It takes the mysticism out of it. It's not about exercising a demon. It's about turning your anxiety into a to-do list.
Precisely. And the text uses this beautiful, if high-stakes analogy, a garland.
A garland.
It says the 7 chakras are a garland, and you cannot offer flowers that haven't blossomed.
Meaning... you can't show up to the ritual with a messy mind.
Exactly. The source says, very explicitly, you have to clean all the 7 chakras before doing Guru Puja. You can't offer a flower that's still a bud.
Or dead.
Or dead, worse. You have to clarify your own mind before the ritual even starts. The ritual doesn't fix you. You fix yourself to be worthy of the ritual.
Which is the total opposite of how we usually treat, therapy or church or self-help. We go there to get fixed.
Right. This is saying, no, do the reading first.
And speaking of reading, the text mentions a book, Guaranteed Solutions, and claims that just reading it can trigger this cleaning process.
Because it changes how you think. It forces that shift.
So let's say we've done the prep work, we've turned our fear into planning, now we get to the flowers. And this is where the definitions get really interesting. The first one is called Amaya.
Amaya. And to understand Amaya, you have to first understand Maya.
Which is usually translated as illusion, right? But that word feels a bit abstract.
It is abstract, but the source gives a very strict, almost technical definition. It says Maya is that which is not there, but threatens as if it is there.
Okay, say that again. That which is not there, but threatens as if it is there. Give me an example.
The source uses a classic analogy here, the snake and the rope.
Oh, I think I've heard this one. You're walking in a garden at night.
Exactly. You're walking at night, you see a coiled shape on the ground. Immediately your brain screams, snake.
Mm-hmm.
Now, here's where the source zooms in. It says, in that moment, your whole swadhisthana, your gut-level fear response, it shakes violently.
So your body physically reacts?
The fear is physically real. You might run to the bathroom, or as the speaker jokes, the bathroom will rush to you.
Yeah. Even though the snake, the actual threat, isn't there.
The threat is zero, but the adrenaline, that's 100%. And this is the crucial part. Later, you look closer, maybe you get a flashlight and you see it's just a rope.
Right.
But why did it look like a snake? Because your fear engrams, your past memories, your internal library of scary things projected the snake onto the neutral reality of the rope.
That is painfully relatable. It's like when you get a text from your boss that just says, call me.
Yes, exactly.
The text is the rope. It's neutral. But your fear engrams turn it into a cobra. You spend the next 10 minutes sweating, convinced you're getting fired.
You are suffering a catastrophe that hasn't happened. The source says you gave life to the rope with your own fear. So Amaya, that first flower you offer, is the state of living without that projection.
Seeing the rope as a rope?
Yes.
That's a high bar. To live completely without projecting our baggage onto the present moment. But that leads right into the next part, which is about identity. The text talks about Ahankar and Mamakar. I feel like we use the word ego a lot, but this seems to break it down more.
It does. The source argues that ego is kind of a sloppy translation. It distinguishes between Ahankar, which is the identity you show to the outer world.
How you want to be recognized.
Yes. And Mamakar, which is how you view yourself on the inside.
The LinkedIn profile versus the internal monologue.
Pretty much. And the source is very critical of Ahankar, that outer identity. It says trying to fit into the frame that society creates for you is absolute hell.
Why hell? I mean, don't we all want to fit in?
Because it's a moving target you don't control. The speaker points out you could spend 25 years building this identity. I'm a CEO, I'm a spiritual person, whatever. You build this frame.
And then
a total stranger can walk up and shatter it in 2 minutes just by, insulting you or not recognizing you.
That's terrifyingly true. You hand the keys to your happiness over to random people. If they clap, you feel good. If they boo,
you crumble. And the source gets really funny here to illustrate how absurd it is. He tells this great story about donkeys and cinema posters.
Oh, this part made me laugh out loud. Please set the scene.
So the speaker describes this scene in South India. You have donkeys wandering the streets. And on the walls, there are all these layers of cinema posters for the latest blockbusters.
The big hero stars.
Exactly. And the donkeys, because they're hungry, they peel off the posters and they eat them.
A literal diet of celebrity culture.
Literally. And the joke is, after eating the posters of these movie stars, the donkeys start acting like they're the actors. They strut around with this newfound arrogance.
I ate the hero, so now I am the hero.
You got it. And he uses this as a really biting analogy for what he calls pseudo-intellectuals.
The people who read the back of a book and think they're an expert?
Yes.
Yeah.
Or they read half a spiritual book, they swallow a few pages like the donkey, and suddenly they're enlightened. They start critiquing the guru.
Right.
The text mentions people asking, why do you have long hair? Enlightened people should be bald.
They have a frame for what a guru looks like, and they get angry when reality doesn't fit the frame.
Right. And the deeper point here is about anahankara, non-ego. It's about refusing to fit into the box that other people design for you. The speaker says, you can't put me in frame. 1 minute he's telling dirty jokes, the next he's doing a puja.
It confuses people.
It disrupts their projection. If you can't predict him, you can't project your movie onto him.
Speaking of projection in movies, let's talk about raga. The source defines this as the energy that empowers fantasy. And, okay, we're getting into some territory that might make some listeners raise an eyebrow.
It gets very specific, almost surprisingly biological.
Yeah, about energy and conception.
Right. This is where the deep dive takes a sharp turn into, like, the physiology of yoga. The source defines raga not just as desire, but as the actual energy that fuels the fantasy.
So it's the battery pack for the daydream.
It is. And the source makes this really sharp distinction about sexual energy. It claims that the physical fluids, they aren't the energy itself. The energy drain comes from the fantasy. It says when the body is full of energy, it wants to give life to fantasy. If you engage in the physical act without the fantasy, without that raga, the energy stays high.
He calls that the Shiva state.
Yes.
And then it drops us a very specific rule, the 40-year rule. What is that all about?
It's a fascinating, if a bit controversial, claim. The source argues that for couples under 40 who conceive a child without raga,
Without projecting a fantasy during the act?
They can birth enlightened beings.
Why 40, though? Is there like a cutoff date for enlightenment?
It seems arbitrary, doesn't it? But the source ties it to the nervous system.
Hmm.
The claim is that after 40, human nerves lack the strength to stay alive without that boost of raga. It's a very specific theory.
But the core takeaway, whether you buy the biology or not, is about how fantasy drains vitality.
And it's not just sexual fantasy, it's fantasy about people. This leads to the difference between raga and mata.
Right. This is crucial for relationships.
Raga is projecting your fantasy onto someone. I want you to be my Prince Charming. But mata, that's taking it a step further. It's trying to bend or alter that person to fit the fantasy.
You're not acting like Prince Charming, so I'm going to change you until you do.
Exactly. And that can get dangerous. The source tells this bizarre and frankly kind of disturbing story about a devotee and a strand of hair.
The lottery winner? This story is wild.
It is. A devotee finds a strand of the guru's hair, puts it in his pocket, and happens to win the lottery. He immediately connects the two magic hair equals money, and he tells everyone.
And chaos ensues.
Absolute chaos. People started physically chasing the guru to pluck his hair. The source describes them running after him, ignoring that he's a living being who feels pain, just to get a piece of luck.
That is a perfect, terrifying example of mata. They didn't see a person, they saw a lottery ticket, they were trying to bend reality, literally pluck it apart to fit their greed.
And that brings us to the negative flowers. We've talked about what to do, but there's a whole list of things to avoid. The weeds we need to pull out.
Let's run through these because some of the definitions are really surprising. We've got moha, adamba, paisunya.
Take moha or delusion. We usually think of delusion as, being crazy. But the source defines it as expanding your territory of fantasies about human beings.
So when you get bored of one fantasy, you just collect another one.
Mind plus reality plus non-reality equals moha.
And adamba.
Similar, but for material things.
Right.
Expanding your fantasy territory about wealth, big cars, showing off. It's the keeping up with the Joneses flower.
The one that really stuck with me was paisunya. It's translated as impurity, but the analogy he used was cosmetic surgery.
Yeah, that was sharp. The source compares it to trying to fix spare parts to show what isn't there. And it contrasts that with saucha, which is cleanliness.
Cleanliness is just keeping what you have graceful. Paisunya is falsifying what you have.
Exactly.
And then we have alobha, or non-greed. But the definition of greed here isn't just wanting money. It felt very relevant to the modern world.
Incredibly relevant. The source defines lobha, greed, as calculating your entire life based on the money you make.
Oof, that hits home.
The example given is, if you won't sit for a 30-minute puja because you mentally calculate that you could have made $100 in that time, that's lobha.
Viewing time purely as currency.
It leaves no space for joy. It's that feeling of, I shouldn't be relaxing, I should be side hustling.
It steals your life.
Right.
And to defend all these bad habits, the greed, the fantasy, the ego, we use logic. And the source has a very, let's say, colorful way of describing logic. I actually did a double take when I read this line.
I know the one.
Yeah.
He calls logic a prostitute.
Direct quote. Logic is a prostitute. That is a bold statement. What on earth does he mean by that?
It's provocative, for sure, but the philosophical point is sound. He's saying logic has no loyalty to the truth. Logic is a mercenary. You can pay it to defend the positive, or you can pay it to defend the negative.
He mentions a game they played, right? The 2-minute game.
Exactly. They would argue for a topic for 2 minutes, say vegetarianism is bad,
Right.
and then immediately switch and argue against it for 2 minutes.
Ah.
And they could do both perfectly.
Using logic.
Using logic. So logic is just a lawyer you hire to justify what you already feel.
It doesn't tell you what's right. It just helps you argue for what you want.
So relying on logic to find spiritual truth, he says, is a trap. You can logically justify your greed or your anger. Logic won't save you.
So if we clear out the weeds, the logic traps, the greed, the fantasy, we finally get to the positive flowers.
Yes. The final push. We have Indriya Nagraha, saying no to the senses, Daya, compassion, Shama, which is described beautifully as just being cool or balanced.
I aspire to be the cool guy of spiritual balance.
And then Jnana, enlightenment, understanding what is said and what is unsaid. But then we get the final twist, the ultimate offering.
Atmanivedanam.
Yes.
This is where the whole ritual turns inward. And honestly, this was the moment where the whole text just clicked for me.
It's the payoff. The source explains that during the mental worship, the Manasa Puja, you place the final flower on your own head.
Wait, say that again. On your own head. I thought we were worshiping the guru, the person in the chair.
And that's the paradox.
Yeah.
The Source says, if you have truly cultivated all these qualities, if you've removed the illusion, the ego, the fantasy,
And established compassion and balance.
then you are the master. You are worshiping your own elevated state.
So the guru isn't the destination. The guru is just the mirror.
Exactly. The ritual is just a method to clean the mirror. The Source says, Guru is in your very being. So you offer the flower to yourself. It's a moment of recognizing your own divinity, but only after you've done the hard work of cleaning up the mess.
That really changes the entire perspective. It goes from I am small, worshiping something big, to I am doing the work to become the big thing.
And the only technique required, according to the text, is right remembrance. Just remembering these states when problems come up.
You just need to remember to shift the cognition. So to bring this all together, we started with what looked like a religious lecture. But what we actually found was this rigorous internal checklist.
It's a psychological audit.
Yeah.
Are you projecting snakes onto ropes?
Yeah.
Are you feeding donkeys cinema posters? Are you calculating your joy in dollars? It really challenges you to strip away the frames and fantasies and just see what's left.
It's intense work. But the promise is that if you do it, you don't need the external validation anymore. You place the flower on your own head.
Which is the ultimate empowerment.
I want to leave you, the listener, with one final thought from this source that I'm still chewing on. It goes back to that idea of logic being a prostitute.
A mercenary.
A mercenary. We live in a world that worships logic and data. We think if we can argue a point well, it must be true.
But the Source suggests that truth isn't found in the argument. It's found in connection and elevation.
Right. So the next time you're trying to make a big decision, a career move, a relationship choice, and you're making that pro and con list, using your logic, ask yourself, is this logic actually leading me to truth?
Or is it just a lawyer I hired to defend what my fear or my fantasy already wants to do?
That is the question. Thanks for diving deep with us. We'll see you on the next one.